Gangwon, where cutting-edge technology and pristine nature coexists. Gangwon is faster and more connected. The global city for industries of the future. Gearing up for new challenges and innovations toward the global stage beyond South Korea. Gangwon State.
In our headlines on this Friday, December 20th, here in South Korea. Acting President Han Duck-soo partook in a meeting between government officials and ruling lawmakers earlier this morning to address the local economy, national security and diplomatic priority. And the U.S. State Department says a high-level interaction between the Biden administration and Seoul's interim government under Han Duck-soo may take place in the near future to reaffirm trust and ties. Meanwhile, yet another summons has been served to President Seoul by authorities here, calling for his presence on Christmas Day for questioning on charges of insurrection. A high-level consultation between government officials and ruling lawmakers took place earlier on this Friday, with economy, security and diplomacy on the agenda. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has details.
The government and ruling People Power Party have pledged joint efforts to roll out aid for ailing businesses and prepare for the incoming Donald Trump administration and its possible engagement with North Korea. This came on Friday during a high-level consultation meeting between various cabinet ministers and ruling party officials. Held at the residence of Acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, the talks took place for the first time in 3 months, signifying the greater need for government party cooperation following President Yoon's suspension from duties. As Yoon faces impeachment over imposing martial law, the two sides stressed the need to recover South Korea's credibility abroad, pledging to strengthen communication with major partner countries and stably manage foreign relations. Based on South Korea-US and South Korea-US-Japan cooperation, the government and ruling party agreed to establish a firm response posture to North Korea's threats and provocations. They will also prepare strategies and roadmaps to address North Korea's nuclear developments and preemptively respond to the possibility of US-North Korea dialogue, given incoming US President Donald Trump's 2 summits with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. With Trump to reclaim the Oval Office in January, the government and ruling party agreed to establish a comprehensive response system covering political and economic realms and utilizing the country's businesses and public-private networks to effectively engage with Washington. Faced with lingering trade and economic uncertainty, as well as increased volatility in financial markets, the government and PPP agreed to release the 2025 economic policy direction within the year, reflecting the need for proactive cooperation in maintaining economic credibility, adapting to trade changes, strengthening industrial competitiveness, and stabilizing livelihoods. Aiming to execute the budget from the first day of next year, the government plans to concentrate spending on supporting small firms and socially disadvantaged groups and alleviating the financial burdens suffered by ordinary citizens. One measure includes launching recovery projects and loans for small firms beginning January, with the budget for loans to expand by 60 billion won, or $41 million to roughly $2.6 billion. With various domestic and security challenges ahead, acting party leader and floor leader Kwon Song-dong requested Han to urgently appoint ministers for the Ministry of National Defense and the Ministry of Interior and Safety to maintain security and public safety, particularly towards the year-end when many gatherings take place. In a briefing later on Friday, Kwon for the first time expressed support for a consultative body between the government and both the ruling and opposition parties after days of resisting the idea backed by the opposition, the Assembly Speaker and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. He said the PPP agreed to participate in the dialogue, focusing on people's livelihoods and national security, and that discussions concerning the members of the group are currently underway. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Opposition lawmakers have voiced their discontent over the recent veto of disputed bills by the acting president, while vowing commitment to impeachment. The ruling party, for its part, seeks to restructure its leadership framework amid the resignation of its leader. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo has more.
A special team made up of opposition lawmakers committed to facilitating the impeachment of President Yoon held its first meeting with legal representatives on Friday and vowed to complete the impeachment trial until its end. The team, led by the main opposition Democratic Party, met with the 17 legal experts and lawyers who will act on the National Assembly's behalf in the impending trial. And nearing the end of Han Duck-soo's first week as acting president, the DP expressed strong regret for Han's use of his veto power the day before, urging him to quickly instigate a prosecution investigation of President Yoon and First Lady Kim as approved in bills by the National Assembly.
I hope that Acting President Han will no longer betray the people. Please quickly promulgate the Special Prosecutor Acts in accordance with public opinion.
The DP further pressured the ruling People Power Party to support the Assembly's follow-up procedures for Yoon's impeachment, including the pending nomination of 3 judges to fill vacancies at the Constitutional Court, which will make the final decision on the president. This, while the ruling party strives to reorganize its leadership structure following the mass resignation of former chairman Han Dong-un and members of the PPP Supreme Council. The party held internal meetings throughout Friday to discuss potential candidates in the pipeline to head its emergency leadership, alongside acting chairman and floor leader Kwon Song-dong. Following the discussions, PPP lawmaker Kim Seok-gi told reporters that it would be right to have 2 leaders to head the party at a time like this, as it faces many tasks ahead. Among those being mentioned as potential candidates are some of the senior members of the party, the 5 times elected Kim Ki-hyun, Kwon Young-se, and Na Kyung-won. Acting Chairman Kwon will receive internal nominations for the next few days before announcing the leader by early next week. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
A high-level interaction between South Korea and the U.S. may take place within the next 30 days, according to the U.S. State Department, as part of efforts to reaffirm trust and, of course, bilateral ties. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
The Biden administration is expected to engage in high-level diplomacy in the coming weeks with South Korea's interim government under acting President Han Duck-soo. The U.S. also reiterated its commitment to maintaining strong relations with Seoul during this transitional period. This is according to Deputy Secretary of State Campbell on Thursday local time. During a roundtable with reporters in Washington, D.C., Campbell said the U.S. plans, quote, high-level engagement in person with the ROK appropriately in due course during the last weeks of the Biden administration. He reaffirmed that the U.S. is closely monitoring South Korea's political developments and supports the country's constitutional procedures, expressing confidence in South Korea's ability to manage this difficult time. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State also highlighted that the U.S. is keeping all diplomatic lines open, not only with the interim government, but also with other political figures in South Korea. Campbell emphasized the importance of continued engagement, stating that the U.S. is working to maintain communication with all key actors in the ongoing crisis. With the upcoming change in the U.S. administration, officials remain optimistic about continuing this partnership. However, the shift in political dynamics could affect the relationship between the two countries, especially with the possibility of a different approach under the incoming Trump leadership. 김정실, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Acting Defense Minister Kim Sun-ho and his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin have reaffirmed their country's alliance. Remarks to this end were shared during talks on the phone earlier this Friday, during which Kim thanked Washington for its support of the alliance amid the political predicament within national borders, while Austin stressed that U.S. commitment to South Korea's security is ironclad. They also touched upon the security situation on the Korean Peninsula and highlighted their commitment to bolstering extended deterrence through the Nuclear Consultative Group, as well as through trilateral cooperation with Japan. Yet another summons has been served to the president, calling for his presence on Christmas Day for questioning. Our Peunji has the latest.
The joint investigation team that's looking into President Yoon over his declaration of martial law has sent another summons to the president over insurrection charges and abuse of power. The team, which is a collaboration between the police, the Defense Ministry, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, has ordered him to appear for questioning at the CIO's office at 10 a.m. on December 25th. But it remains to be seen whether President Yoon will appear, as this is the second time the joint investigation team has sent a summons order, after the president did not show up for questioning on December 18th. The CIO is reportedly considering requesting an arrest warrant for Yoon if the president does not comply with the summons for Christmas Day. In a parliamentary session earlier this week, its chief prosecutor had hinted at the possibility of carrying out a compulsory investigation by not denying the fact that his office can arrest the president if the conditions are met.
We are in a situation where a legitimate summons order is being refused. We've been closely monitoring this situation.
Separately, the special police team investigating the brief imposition of martial law said it has conducted questioning on Acting President Han Duck-soo. Han is one of the 9 people the police said they've questioned over their attendance at a cabinet meeting that President Yoon held just before he declared martial law on December 3rd. This is the first time Han has been known to have been questioned by the police as a suspect in the probe. Meanwhile, the CIO has also requested an arrest warrant for the country's former military intelligence commander, Moon Sang-ho. Moon is suspected of discussing martial law operations with 3 other military officials 2 days before the martial law was declared. He's also suspected of sending troops to the National Election Commission's office on the night martial law was imposed. Peunji, Arirang News.
In his annual press conference this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke at length about his strengthening of Russia amid its advances in Ukraine, whose leader Volodymyr Zelensky also addressed members of the media on Thursday in Brussels to condemn Mr. Putin and his callous campaign. Our Yoon-jin covers their remarks.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday held his annual end-of-year press conference, which lasted for 4.5 hours. During the TV marathon, the Russian leader emphasized that Russia is getting closer to achieving its primary goals in Ukraine, while also noting that the country's economy is stable. A BBC journalist reminded Putin of how his predecessor told him to take care of the country when he handed over power, then challenged Putin on whether he has taken care of Russia over his 25 years in power. The Russian leader said not only has he protected his country, but has pulled it back from the edge of the abyss.
Yes, I believe that I have not just protected it. I believe that we have pulled back from the edge of the abyss. Because everything that happened to Russia before and after that moment led us to a complete total loss of our sovereignty. And without sovereignty, Russia cannot exist as a separate independent country.
Putin covered a wide range of topics in front of the journalists, including Syria, where he insisted that Russia was not defeated, adding that Moscow was holding talks with the new Syrian ruling government over Russia's military bases in the country. But there was no mention of North Korea. Considering the growing military alliance between Moscow and Pyongyang, it was largely speculated that Putin would have made some comment on the regime. Despite growing evidence and reports of North Korea's involvement in Russia's war efforts, both Moscow and Pyongyang have been silent on the matter. Meanwhile, leaders of the 27 European Union countries adopted a joint statement on Thursday, condemning North Korea for aiding Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. The EU leaders said North Korea's deployment of troops represented an international escalation and called on countries to stop direct and indirect support for Russia. During a press conference after the EU summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to stand on Ukraine's side, calling him a strong man.
I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important. I want to discuss with him more details about this war. I think it's...
Also during the press conference, Zelensky took the opportunity to slam Putin, calling him both dangerous and crazy, adding that he loves to kill. 이은진, Arirang News.
Up next, an annual event to applaud the achievements of gamers at local and international esports competitions this year. Our E&E covers the 2024 induction ceremony.
Who is your esports star of the year? Find out at the 2024 Esports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, an event that recognizes and celebrates the achievements of players who have excelled on South Korean and international stages throughout the year. Key figures from the esports industry, alongside players who have demonstrated outstanding dedication, gathered at Seoul's Esports Hall of Fame on Thursday, the world's only venue dedicated to the history of esports, and in particular, its 20-year journey in South Korea. The ceremony awarded 15 heroes for their achievements in tournaments, while 6 star performers were selected from 18 nominees through an online vote. Nearly 28,000 fans took part in the vote, about 1.5 times more than last year, to choose their favorite esports player of the year.
The 18 nominees include 10 players from the League of Legends, 5 from Valorant, 2 from Battlegrounds, and 1 from Tekken. Let's find out which players won the hearts of fans this year and will be featured here at the Hall of Fame for the coming year.
The 6 finalists included 3 League of Legends players, Lee Sang-hyuk, known as Faker, and the greatest of all time, Yoo Min-seok, known as Carrier, and Moon Yeon-jun, known as Owner. League of Legends also dominated the awards, taking home Game of the Year, while Team of the Year was awarded to T1, a team that continues to make history. This year, T1 won the League of Legends World Championship for the 2nd consecutive year, breaking their own record for the most wins in history since 2011. Recognized as an esports powerhouse, South Korea is working to strengthen its role as a global leader in the esports industry. The International Esports Federation is a non-profit global esports organization founded in 2008 in South Korea with the leadership of South Korea and collaboration with 8 other countries. And currently there are over 140 member federations.
As esports grow globally, we are collaborating with various organizations, sharing South Korea's successful examples and creating platforms like esports summits, allowing many countries to look to South Korea's model for guidance. Our goal is to keep South Korea at the forefront of esports growth and its global development.
This year, players gave their all, and fans can't wait to see what they will accomplish in the coming year and which new talents will rise to the spotlight. As always, the future of esports is filled with promise and excitement. 이은희, Arirang News.
And K-culture is expanding its presence in Northern Europe, with Sweden set to play a critical role in catering to regional demand for K-music, K-movies and more. Our correspondent Song Yoo-jin explains.
the birthplace of ABBA, Spotify, and IKEA. Sweden has long been celebrated for its creativity and cultural innovation. This month, Stockholm became home to the Korea Creative Content Agency Sweden, the agency's first branch in Northern Europe.
We've seen growing interest in K-pop among teens and young adults, with Swedish musicians contributing as songwriters and producers. Given Sweden's global reputation in gaming, with titles like Minecraft and Candy Crush Saga, we plan to focus on collaboration in music and gaming.
Take Stockholm's K-pop non-stop dance academy, for example. Starting with just 2 classes and 20 students in 2015, it has grown to over 15 classes with a community of 200 students.
Before, it was more of a niche thing like K-pop, so it wasn't very widely accepted. It's not only singing and dancing, but it's also like the performance. And I also liked how you get to learn to know the idols more as a person and not just as an artist.
But it's only recent years that this interest has started to flourish. So after opening Northern Europe's first Korean cultural center last year, Sweden has now welcomed KOKA Sweden, the first Korea Creative Content Agency's branch in the region.
Northern Europe historically had limited access to Korean culture due to its geographic distance and lack of dedicated cultural institutions. But with the rise of digital platforms, people here have begun to explore K-pop, Korean dramas, and more.
The opening of the Korean Cultural Center Sweden last year was a turning point. Since its launch in May 2023, the center has hosted a range of events from K-pop festivals to Korean food seminars, establishing itself as a hub for promoting Korean culture not just in Sweden, but across Northern Europe. Director Lee Kyung-jae says there's a reason why Korean culture is spreading so quickly in Sweden.
Swedes are known for immersing themselves in their interests. For example, instead of simply enjoying kimchi at restaurants, many choose to learn how to make it themselves. Our center is serving as a space where they can share their passions and discover new aspects of Korean culture that are hard to access online.
This passion was evident among the students taking Korean language classes at the center.
You can tell this from the amount of Korean restaurants opening, the amount of Korean foods available in different Asian food stores. There is a bigger interest in Korean music. You can see Korean artists coming to play here.
People are getting more and more interested, and also having this culture institute opening up here as well. I think it's interesting to know more about Korea because, we know a little bit about Korea, but maybe not about a lot of the culture. So it's good to have all the other things that we don't know about Korea, like literature and food.
By bridging cultures, these two institutions are not only strengthening ties between Sweden and Korea, but also laying the foundation for deeper connections between Korea and Northern Europe. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
The Korean animation Baby Shark has been nominated for 3 potential awards at the Children's and Family Emmys. Now they include Best Voice Performer, Best Original Song, and Best Sound Mixing and Sound Editing. According to the animations company Pinkfong, the nominations are the most ever for a Korean animation at the Emmys. Now the Children's and Family Emmy Awards ceremony takes place in LA next March, during which the event celebrates its 3rd anniversary.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. A French court has handed down a 20-year sentence to the man who for almost a decade repeatedly drugged and raped his wife and invited dozens of strangers to take part. Defendant Dominique Pelicot was found guilty of all charges on Thursday for the crimes against his wife Gisèle Pelicot. A panel of judges in Avignon, south of France, sentenced 72-year-old Dominique Pelicot to the maximum term in the landmark case, while the 50 other co-defendants were each found guilty of at least one charge, including rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault, receiving 3 to 15 years in jail. Gisèle Pelicot, who sat in the packed courtroom to hear the sentencing, said that this trial was a very difficult ordeal, while adding that she never regretted the decision to make the case public so that society can be aware of the debates that were held in the courtroom. She also said that she now has confidence in society to build a future where men and women can live in harmony through mutual respect. Moving over to Nigeria, 35 children have been killed in a crowd crush at a Christmas fun fair in the country's southwest city of Ibadan after over 5,000 children reportedly gathered at the event's venue on Wednesday. A police spokesperson said on Thursday that 8 people have since been arrested for their various involvements in the crush, and at least 6 children remain hospitalized after serious injuries. The crush on Wednesday happened at an end-of-the-year Christmas fun fair, where the organizers had promised to give 5,000 naira, or some $3, and free food to 5,000 children. Witnesses say that the crush occurred when the main organizers arrived to start the event, but the exact sequence of events up to the crush is not yet known. The Nigerian President Bola Tinubu expresses condolences to the affected families and ordered a thorough investigation. In the U.S., workers across 7 Amazon facilities in California, Georgia, Illinois, and New York went on strike on Thursday, aiming to pressure the e-commerce giant into contract negotiations. The strike was organized by the Teamsters Union, which says it represents some 10,000 workers at 10 Amazon facilities. Amazon currently employs some 800,000 workers in its U.S. warehouses. The union said it had previously given Amazon until Sunday for contract talks, a deadline ignored by the company. Teamsters President Sean O'Brien said in a statement that if disruptions such as delays in the delivery of goods occur, customers should blame Amazon's insatiable greed. Belgium will become the first country in the European Union to ban disposable electronic cigarettes from the 1st of January next year. The move, which has been widely discussed in Europe, relates to the use of electronic cigarettes among children, as well as damage to the environment. Belgium's health minister said that disposable e-cigarettes are designed to attract young people and could lead to a new generation of smokers. While countries like Germany and France are currently working on legislation to ban single-use vapes, the United Kingdom is set to ban their sale starting June 2025. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
The cold spell slowed down today, but ultrafine dust is a problem. Currently, Seoul is showing bad levels of ultrafine dust concentrations. Tomorrow, smoke from overseas will be added, and the air will be dusty in western parts of Gangwon-do province and northern parts of the Gyeongsang-do provinces. The dust will be resolved quickly as the cold winds strengthen tomorrow. There's also news of snow and rain today. Starting with the west coast areas, it will gradually snow in the central parts of the country and Jeollabuk-do province from tonight. Tomorrow, it will expand to most parts of the country. With a heavy snow advisory issued for Jeju Island, up to 20 centimeters of heavy snow will fall by Sunday. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at -1 degree, Chuncheon -4 degrees. Highs will move up to 2 degrees in Seoul, Busan and Jeju 9 degrees. The snow will mostly have stopped by tomorrow afternoon. However, cold weather is expected to make a return on Sunday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.
Gangwon, where cutting-edge technology and pristine nature coexists. Gangwon is faster and more connected. The global city for industries of the future, gearing up for new challenges and innovations toward the global stage beyond South Korea. Gangwon State.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colours, grab an apron. It's the best defence against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat, and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sam like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥?
취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
The Korean protesters who took to the streets to peacefully share their stance against the imposition of martial law continue to secure much applause from those overseas for their tangible dedication to shaping their country's democracy. With more in Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome. It's Friday, December 20th here in Korea and you're watching Press Perspective. According to American philosopher John Dewey, democracy is a moral ideal, one that requires actual work and effort by people because it is they who steer the ship of the state. Now, this being said, today we delve yet again into the public's effort here to uphold democracy. For more on this, I have Yang Chen-hao, a journalist from Taiwan based here in Seoul. Chen-hao, as always, welcome back.
Good evening, glad to be here.
And I also have writer Colin Marshall with us as well because it's Friday. Colin, it's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me as always.
Right, Colin, the foreign media, there's been quite a bit of coverage about Korea's democracy yet again. What appears to be the general assessment?
Well, in the United States, where I'm from, there is a big deal made of this idea of journalistic objectivity or neutrality. You know, you shouldn't be taking a side. But I do get the sense in stories published in the U.S. press or in other Western countries that they're definitely on the side of the protesters. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate this too much, but you read a lot of these stories, you can come away with the impression, oh, President Yoon is bad and the protesters are good. I mean, I recall a few years ago, the Washington Post in the U.S., a major newspaper, changed its slogan to "Democracy dies in darkness." Very vivid slogan, but it tells you kind of where they're coming from. And I think this whole angle of South Koreans, these people saved democracy. They saved their own imperiled democracy that the president was threatening. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it is the angle that has been gone with in a lot of the Western press and other countries as well. I do notice, this stuck out to me, that when discussing President Yoon's announcement initially of martial law, when describing sort of what he was saying, they do reference his evocation of supposed North Korean forces, North Korean sympathizers blocking governance within South Korea. And a lot of these US or other Western countries' media, they just sort of dismiss it out of hand as ridiculous. And maybe it is. But, I mean, he certainly didn't provide evidence. You know, he provided no evidence, but at the same time, Korea has changed a lot if the foreign media are now rejecting out of hand the very idea that North Korea could influence its internal workings. I mean, North Korea is still there. The relationship between the countries hasn't changed that much, but now it's just, come on, it's ridiculous. So take it for what it's worth. Maybe it is ridiculous, maybe it's not, but I do find North Korea tends to be overestimated by foreign press as an existential threat to South Korea and underestimated in its potential to influence South Korea. But that's a different subject for another day.
Right, it really is. Chen-hao, before we delve any further, what has been the response in Taiwan to South Korea's vote to impeach the president at the parliament that was this past weekend?
Oh, many people are like paying attention to that. Many of my stories, like, including TV reports and text reports, are like gaining like 100,000 viewers. So this is like quite high. People, they begin to know the reason that President Yoon announcing martial law. This is only due to his contradiction with the parliament instead of any invasions or attack from North Korea or any kind of emergency situation. And especially for those who have followed my reports or updates in recent years, they already know that the President Yoon's problem. For example, we have the First Lady's cases of like speculating in stocks. And also President Yoon posing a veto on special prosecutors for the First Lady and also on other bills passed by the opposition party for totally 24 times. So, and then this martial law announcement, lack of fully discussion with other cabinet members and without telling the National Assembly. And new testimonies has shown that like the police and military leaders, they have tell the media that they got the order from the president to arrest the politicians or even judges, which made people realizing that it's more to like political purge. So lack of legitimacy. So people in Taiwan, we really focused on the vote of the impeachment, and people finally trying to put themselves into Koreans' shoes. Like, think about it. If you are a Korean in this kind of situation, you might be definitely very angry too. And Taiwan and South Korea, indeed, we have very similar progress of democratization. So we have that very similar kind of feeling. And 8 years ago, we have witnessed like President Park Geun-hye being impeached, and now it happened again. And we see that South Korean people, they are trying to show their power or anger or voices, trying to really play an actual role in their history instead of ignoring it.
Right. And Colin, while Chen Hao focuses on the actual factual information about the political turmoil here in the country, some publications have sought to ponder on how a Trump administration would have possibly responded to the political turmoil here in South Korea if it had been in power at the time. What do you believe is the background behind such pondering, if you will?
Yes, Donald Trump, whatever else you can say about him, compels media attention. He did during his first term, and he's doing it again. Now he's been reelected, but he's not actually in office yet. So the press has to speculate. Well, if he was already president, what would he do? And of course, there was this wave of articles sort of postulating, oh, what if Trump does what Yoon Suk-yeol did? What if he were to declare martial law? But then we have this sort of more subtle genre of pieces. What if President Trump, what if he was president again now? And, what would his relationship be with Yoon Suk-yeol? Because there was some thinking, for better or for worse, some hopes or perhaps fears that Trump and Yoon would get along well. This idea that they're kind of the same type of guy. Some thought it. They have similarities in their personality, perhaps, or style of governance. But we may never get to find out. We'll see how it plays out in the Constitutional Court. But I think the background you're getting at here, or what's more relevant, is that this question of Trump's desire to keep U.S. military presence as it is in Korea or not, because he's complained. Trump has complained aloud, it's costing us too much. We're paying too much money to keep troops in Korea and Japan, not getting anything out of it, in his characteristic rhetorical style. And I think there's no such thing as a coherent Trumpism ideologically, but I heard it put this way. A lot of Trump voters, the first time around or this time around in America, they're frustrated with whether it be continued ingress of immigrants, whether it be foreign wars, whether it be trade deals. They're frustrated with the U.S.'s entanglements with the world outside its borders. And if that's one of the forces that brought Trump to power, one of the sentiments that brought Trump to power again, you do wonder, would he intervene? Would he want to intervene for the preservation of South Korea's democracy? Or would he have the attitude like, look, it's not our problem. We're giving you enough money as it is. That's my best Trump impression, by the way. But not very good, I realize. But I think we all understand that that's how he would be thinking, one way or the other. He maybe wouldn't be as eager as some previous U.S. presidents to step in and prevent martial law, prevent democracy from becoming something else.
You're right. I suppose we'll know for sure when he enters power again on January 20th then. Chen Hao, the political turmoil in the country has also prompted quite a bit of foreign media attention on the unique traits, if you will, of the society here. What more can you share?
During the first night when the martial law was being announced, I arrived at the National Assembly around 2 a.m. During that time, it was like already the Parliament has already passed to cancel the martial law, and I. In front of the National Assembly, I've seen many people are gathering, and half of them are under 30s, and including many young students who are like high school students and even like university students. And I remember I filmed and university students, she's like speaking in front of the gate, in the front gate of the National Assembly, saying that originally I didn't want to come here, but my junior classmates, she decided to come, so I follow her. I've never experienced the martial law, and I've never experienced the dictatorship period like during the 80s, and I was really worried that I might be shot by the special forces, but I've overcome my fear and I finally come here. So, for the young generation, it's a progress of realizing and deciding to protect the democratic system. Narrowly, when we speak of attending politics, many people only think about voting, but it's more like you also taking this kind of action is kind of attending the politics. And I do witness female groups. attending. And also, if you see on like Facebook fan page, many female NGOs and civil groups, they are calling people to join the protest. Originally, most of the younger generations, if you look at the presidential election in 2017, those in their 20s and 30s, they are the core supporters for the Democratic parties or the progressive candidates. But because of the continual sexual harassment cases by the star Democratic Party politicians such as Oh Go-dun and the former Busan mayor and Park Won-sun, the Seoul mayor. So we can see that many young girls, young female in South Korea, they were protesting, demonstrating on the street, calling the attention for the current status of female being harassed or discriminated. But meanwhile, it also triggered the attacks of the counterattacks of the male groups, claiming that feminism is wrong, and those female victims, they were just single cases, and those women, they are trying to make feminism like female hegemony. So during the election in 2022, 2 years ago, we can see that President Yoon, the candidate Yoon, stood for this kind of advocation. Also, he's trying to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, and successfully it attracts young male voters for him. And the gap, the contradiction among the gender issue made young male Korean voters, they changed their mind to vote for the conservative. The split vote of the younger generations in South Korea is one of the main reasons that blocked the Democratic candidate Lee Jae-myung from winning. So now the female groups comes out again, showing their anger toward President Yoon because they can't see any improvement on gender issues, but with more sexual harassing or cybersexual cases or even deepfake cases happening, and most of the victims were female. And to them, I think President Yoon is a disaster.
Right. Meanwhile, Colin, on a lighter note, if you will, Bloomberg claims that the prompt suspension of the president from duty is owing to Korea's pali-pali culture, referring to the hurry-hurry culture that we have. Would you say this is a fair assessment? It's an intriguing take. This is, of course, the republic or the civilization of pali-pali, variously translated hurry-hurry, quickly, all about getting things done fast. And friends who visit from foreign countries, even the West, they will be impressed. Every time they come, it's just, wow, that could never get done so fast in America or in the UK or wherever it might be. There are a lot of services that either don't exist elsewhere, or if they do exist, they move a lot faster here than they do in other countries. But anybody who has studied Korean knows this word, it occurs so quickly in your Korean language education. It's one of the first things you learn, pali-pali. And you think about, why is it? Why would things be moving so fast here? And anybody who's worked here in Korea for a long time can tell you, pali-pali is partially about problems getting to a critical point. And then you have to work fast because people have not been taking responsibility necessarily up until the last minute. So sometimes pali-pali comes at the very end of a long process where not a lot is getting done, or incipient problems are not getting addressed. And so there's kind of a negative side to it too, or a side that isn't all about convenience, that it's about the way that perhaps sometimes no one really is tasked with fixing a certain problem before it grows out of control. And then it's time to get pali-pali. Right. Chen Hao, the latest political events here, they've also shed a renewed interest perhaps in K-pop songs like Into the New World by Girls' Generation, K-movies like 12 the Day. Have you seen it? Yeah, not really. Right, but I was going to be the translator of the book before. Oh, right, interesting. Yeah, for the Mandarin version. Oh, right then. Speaking about books also, Han Gang's Human Act is also getting quite a bit of attention. What do you suppose are some of these shared traits of K productions that deal with history history?
I need to say Koreans are really good at producing those kind of issues, historical issues into those cultural stuffs. For example, we can see many movies. They are describing how cruel it was during the dictatorship period and how it was against with the humanity, and not only domestically, but also it is internationally popular and gained many attention. Before 2010, we have the movie called 화려한 휴가, luxury vacation, but English we officially translated into May 18th, which is for Gwangju massacre and the democratization movement. And Attorney in 2013, which is for based on the experience of former President Yoon when he was a human rights lawyer. And also we have seen like Taxi Driver and 1987. These two movies. Taxi Driver is also for the Gwangju massacre and Gwangju uprising. And 1987 it was like describing the like civil movements, like people they are like going on the street protesting, asking President Chun Doo-hwan to release his power. And also, when talking about the Gwangju uprising, we can also see like Han Gang's Human X. She described many parts of it. And when covering the protest in the past 2 weeks, as my experience, there are at least 3 young students. They told me that they've watched the 12 and 12, the Seoul bomb, the movie about the coup and martial law, and they say that they've just watched that this year or last year, and they were afraid of this kind of situation happen again. So that's why they come out of the street and protesting. And in Taiwan, we also experienced martial law. We talked about it before, and we also experienced like military dictatorship for 40 or 50 years. So Taiwan and South Korea, we have very similar experience, and we also have tremendous history ingredients. But many Taiwanese people are thinking that why can't Taiwanese make this kind of movies? It has been a major debate these 10 years. Why can Korean do, but why can't Taiwanese do? We don't have to be like Korea making those like big movies just like Hollywood. No, but why can't Taiwanese make such movies into success? I think the main reason is because like many Taiwanese producers and artists, those actors, they are only focusing their markets to China. And you know, this kind of historical ingredients, these kind of issues are very sensitive. If you talk about democratization, if you talk about protest, demonstration on streets, is very sensitive in China. So that makes like Taiwanese, those companies, they aren't willing to make these kind of things on the screen. So it's kind of self-censorship indeed.
Right, that is an interesting input there. Colin, some claim that Korea's protest culture, it will serve to ultimately power forward the democracy here in the country. Do you share this view?
I think there's truth to that, but also you have to ask a very simple, a very obvious sounding question, which is, why were the protesters out there? Why did they gather in front of the National Assembly? Because what is at issue, as I understand it, is that President Yoon tried to impose martial law without giving, indeed, while preventing the National Assembly from voting on it. He is empowered in the Constitution to impose martial law, technically, but he is also required to allow a vote, which is exactly what he's trying not to do. Okay, this is a matter for the Constitutional Court. They'll work it out, and it sounds like Yoon doesn't have much of a case on his side. We don't know yet, but it sounds like the case against him is fairly strong. At no point in this process is public opinion really a factor. So you wonder, so why are the protesters there? This is by way of saying that democracy and protesting sort of get conflated, but democracy is a system of institutions, as I've said here before, and institutions that bend to the will of protesters as a matter of course are not robust democratic institutions, I would say. Democracy in a modern sense is about delegation and removing the need for constant political participation from the public, you could say. Now, in this case, the protesters do reflect the will of the people, I think, but it is dangerous to start looking at people protesting in the street and saying, oh, those are the people. capital P. Because next time people are in the streets, who knows, maybe they will or will not reflect what the popular will actually is. And, you take this to an extreme. If you start treating every instance of protest as democracy, it is a short path to mob rule. But I think in this case, that's not a problem, because I think people all agree with the protesters. But part of me always thinks, well, let's not be too cavalier about seeing protesters and saying, oh, look, another victory for democracy. Maybe in this time it was, but we're not guaranteed that every time.
Right, that is something to think about for sure, Colin. Chen-ha, what elements do you suppose of Korea's efforts to protect democracy could perhaps bode well for broader regional stability here in Asia?
Indeed, it's a very difficult question, but I'm trying to reply in this way. In the past 40 years, Korea has shown this very unique experience for having power transition peacefully. At first, it was in 1987, forcing President Chun Doo-hwan releasing the power, though some students that sacrificed. And another is in 2016, when President Park was being impeached, both by the parliament and then the Constitutional Court. And now we are waiting for President Yoon, at least till now, no bleeding, and that is very special. And it did trigger some chaos or instability among, and you can see that generation, they have gap, they have some contradictions, that's unavoidably. But in the progress, you can still see a trend. It is happening again and again, and it has been condensing or embodying the spirit that people are really desiring and think it is necessary to build up and maintain and protect the democracy, the democratic system. And the interesting part is these historical moments are often being produced into cultural content, and such as novels, dramas, and movies. We just talked about it. It is being translated and spread to places outside Korea and giving inspirations or supports for those, mental supports for those who are still fighting for democratization outside Korea. For example, like in 2019, when Hong Kong have their democratic democratization movement, many people, they were rewatching the movie of a Taxi Driver in 1987, and even the student leader Joshua Wong, he texted me and saying that what is happening in Korea for these years. And during the 2016, when President Park was being impeached, many people in Hong Kong, they wrote to me, and they were really paying attention to what's happening. So you can see that these kind of things, those history experiences of South Korea, they are, after they are being transmitted into the cultural contents, it is indeed playing a very important role, and it is affecting people outside Korea, trying to learn something and trying to learn and trying to borrow the experience and trying to have a mental inspiration for themselves.
Right, I'm sure Korea itself is learning from its current experience. All right, Chen-ha, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
And Colin, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, on that note, we end this week's editions of Press Perspective. Have a great weekend. See you same time next Monday.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
Okay, I'm all set. I just need to make a plan. Should I ask AI? What shall I do while visiting Korea?
Here are some recommendations. Explore historical palaces. Visit Hanok villages. Enjoy Korea's natural scenery. Experience traditional Korean.
에이, 이건 당연한 거고.
What?
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 컬러를 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한판 꼭